Good evening. This is Matt Mosley. I'm here with Grant Cook and Greg Almonte. We'll have Coach Kelly joining us in a little bit. We're going to be missing Danny and B tonight. They're both under the weather. I want to give them a quick shout out and let them know, hey, we love you and we're thinking about you. Real quick, I want to touch on something before we get started. At Arkansas Sports Network and Big Pig Energy, we want to let the folks in Virginia know that we're thinking about them tonight. If you guys have been watching the national news, had a former player of the University of Virginia murdered a couple of guys from the Virginia football team Sunday night, shot a couple of others on a school bus from a function. Just want to let those folks know that we're thinking about them. Thoughts and prayers to those people in the state of Virginia and the alumni for the University of Virginia. I've got some friends that go there and have went there, and they're great people, and it's a great university, and I hate to see something like this happen to some great folks. We're gonna go ahead and kick it off. Coach Kelly's going to join us here in a little bit. He's running a little bit behind this evening, but we're going to get him on here just as soon as he can. And then we've got a special guest picker later on tonight. Everybody's going to be really, really excited to see that. Let's just dive right in. I mean, LSU post game. What can we say? It was a balmy 33 degrees Saturday morning, coldest game in Fayetteville since November of 2014. I want to start with the defensive side of the football because we've really talked a lot about these guys all season long and how rough a year they've had, covering the pass, stopping the run, being consistent on third down, doing the things that you need to do on defense to keep yourself in a ball game. These guys stepped up in a huge way on Saturday. They held LSU to 284 yards of total offense. That's the fewest since the 22 season, and the second fewest by LSU this season. And the second game in a row that the defensive unit has looked just great. The Hogs up front had 7 sacks in the game. We had 2 from number 27, Chris Paul Jr., 2 from Drew Sanders, 2 from Terry Hampton, and then we had half sacks from Landon Jackson, Shad Stewart, and Eric Gregory. Sanders went on. He's got 8 sacks on the season, and most by a Razorback since Dietrich Wise. I mean, I didn't realize that we had to go that far back. I mean, you don't think about total sack numbers in the season, Grant, until something like this happens and you see a guy kind of come out of, I don't want to say come out of nowhere because Drew Sanders really didn't come out of nowhere, but you see a guy like a Drew Sanders come in the program and do some great things. But it's the first time since 2015 we've had a guy with 8 sacks in a season. And Sanders is tied for 10th most in the season in school history. He also logged his 5th double-digit tackling game of the season with 12. And he's led the Hogs defense in tackling 6 out of 10 games. I mean, Grant, can you look at a kid like a Drew Sanders? I mean, I talked about this earlier in the season. I know you weren't here, but, what does that do for recruiting other linebackers on down the road? I mean, seeing a guy come in that is a legit 5-star and be able to produce at a high level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that shows you that you can do it here, right? And I think for kids that are coming out of high school that are that kind of elite level talent, if you want to go to an Alabama or to a Georgia, I mean, the template that they've got there is, you're probably going to sit for 2 years because there's guys that were just like you coming out of school that have put in their time here, and it's their time to shine on the field. So you're probably going to sit. I think somewhere like Arkansas, we would have seen this from Drew Sanders for the last 2 years. At least maybe not freshman year, but definitely sophomore, junior year. I think he contributed some for Alabama last year. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a proving point that, hey, you can come be in the SEC, you can start almost immediately and come make an impact on a team. And it gives you something to point to, right? Look at this guy. He came out here, he did the right things, and he's getting the product put out on the film and on the field. I think it does nothing but help in recruiting.
Well, talking about that, I mean, you think about what we had to replace last year, losing Henry, losing Grant Morgan. I mean, both those guys had over 100 tackles. He's come in and had a great season. He's not leading the team, but he is second in the team in total tackles. Bumper pool. He's doing bumper pool stuff. This guy is a tackling machine. He had 10 tackles on Saturday, had double stops for the fourth time this year, and his 21st time as a Razorback over the last 5 or 6 years. I forget how long Bumper's been here now. He's a season leader of tackles with 90, and he's up to 439 tackles on the all-time leader chart. He broke Tony Bua's record back BYU, I think, or maybe a week before. I can't remember. But he's on pace to be the first Hog defender to have 3 consecutive 100 tackle seasons since Dejon Harris in 17 to 19. And we talk about production. I mean, when you see these guys like a Bumper Pool's playing hurt, he's playing dinged up, and he's still getting 100 tackles a year. I mean, that in itself is a lead by example thing. I mean, to see a guy kind of, I don't want to call it an Iron Man situation, but I mean, you think about it, you look at Bumper, you say last year he didn't start with 1 game. He was one of those guys, like every time that there was a big tackle or a gang tackle, Bumper was involved in the hit. You've seen him, running up thumping people. I mean, Saturday I saw something out of him I hadn't seen in a couple of weeks. He looked a little bit quicker. He was thumping. He looked like the Bumper from maybe 6-7 games ago, like maybe the hip injury starting to heal up. He's starting to feel a little better. I like to see him moving around. I mean, he's not great in coverage. I mean, let's be real. I mean, he's not great in zone. He covers just a little bit better than I do, and I'm 43 and got bad knees. But he's really good in run game. I mean, he's got such a nose for where the holes are going to open up and sticking his head in there. Getting into the rest of the defense, Quincy McAdoo, freshman, got his first start Saturday as a Hog. It's the first time a freshman started a game this season. PFF rated him the 3rd best defensive performer on Saturday with 5 tackles for the Razorbacks and only allowed 1 catch on 4 targets. How huge is it for a freshman to come in and put that kind of impact on a game?
Yeah, I mean, for anybody to put that kind of impact on a game at that level, I think that's huge, much less a freshman, right? And, extremely excited to see what Quincy does for the rest of his career here. Coming in thinking, hey, I'm going to play wide receiver. We talked about it some last week. Kind of get your mind set around that. And then, hey, the team needs help. Let me switch over and go from the 4A South or 5A South or whatever it was in Arkansas high school football. It's the last time he played corner and making an impact against some of the best wide receivers in the SEC. I mean, I think he was lined up there with Boutte a couple of times, and Jaden Daniels is no slouch at quarterback. So, I mean, he had a tall task, and it's impressive to see him be able to adjust so quickly. And I think that's just going to pay dividends for him throughout the rest of his career. And I think you've got a guy that can play both ways now, right? I mean, and I'm not saying you're going to do that in a game. I mean, it's not high school football, but you've got someone that can contribute all over the field, not just at corner or wide receiver.
Well, I think with a kid like McAdoo, you've got a kid that has got a nose for football. He's an aggressive ball player. He's smart. He's heady. And that for an 18-year-old kid to come in flat, really with no game experience other than a little bit of special teams play as a gunner here and there, it's like, dude, the switch is flipped, which, barring anything crazy, you get him the rest of the season, these last couple of games, get him some game experience. You get him, God willing, we get bowl eligible, give him that bowl practice. Those 2 weeks of bowl practice or 2.5 weeks that we get for bowl practice. Then you get him ready in the spring. When he comes out the next fall, he is a different ball player. Like, he's gone from a freshman to an impact guy as a sophomore.
Anytime you get time as a freshman, I mean, game experience is the most valuable thing for any football player that you can give them. Practicing is one thing, scrimmaging is one thing, but getting out there in front of 70, 80, 90,000 people, playing against competition, real competition, is the biggest thing for any position in the game of football. It gets you comfortable being in that, in that spot, right? And I think that's just, you'll see it through the rest of his career that he's got some time this year to get that kind of shock and awe factor out of the way of being in a game.
And moving on to the back end of the defense, Latavius Barini heard his name called Saturday in the first quarter. Got a big interception on Jalen Daniels' pass. Also recovered a fumble later in the game, making him the second hog this year on defense to do that. Hudson Clark was the other one. Moving to the other side of the ball, it wasn't as pretty. KJ Jefferson was out this week. Much maligned. Heard a lot about the bruised collarbone, the inability to make the throws, the things that was going on with him physically. Coach Pittman and Coach Briles decided to go out with Malik Hornsby to start the game. Getting his first career start as a Razorback did not look good early. He struggled 4 and 9 for 24 yards. He did carry the ball 18 times for 79 yards, but most of that was he was running for his life. The offensive line, and Grant, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Offensive line looked a little disjointed again Saturday, and I think that's a concerning thing being this late in the season.
Yeah, I think so. First things first, I think we have solidified the suspicions, if you want to call it a suspicion, that without KJ, we really don't go. And I don't think that was a secret for anybody out there. I think we knew that, but then we really just saw it come to fruition there. I think Malik is a really, really good athlete. I think that he has potential, but he's not an SEC quarterback. Maybe he can turn into one, but he's not the guy right now. I think that as far as the offensive line is concerned, you're going up against a guy that, once again, we were talking about freshman just a second ago, a freshman of our own. You're talking about a freshman that is, I don't know if there's awards out there or whatever for freshman of the year in the SEC or in the NCAA, but Harold Perkins is making a heck of an argument for himself to be, he may be first team All SEC as a freshman.
That's a grown ass man right there, number 40.
The fact that he was doing that in high school last year, that he was playing against high school kids last year, and then coming up and showing up what he's doing right now in the SEC is unbelievable. So going to the offensive line, obviously missing a key part there in Dalton Wagner, right? Not saying that that's the difference in how well that Harold Perkins played, but Tykeus Crawford gets his first start, really probably first meaningful minutes in a football game wearing an Arkansas uniform, and you're missing a 6-year right tackle. I mean, that's a big deal, right? And the two plays where Fortin is hit or hurried, those came off Tykeus, and that's nothing against him. You're going against elite level talent there.
He looked like, the way, because it's not like Perkins beat him with some kind of wild spin move or any kind of, he just dipped and ducked him, and that was it. And it just looked like he was a little slow coming out of his break. And when he missed that step, Grant, you played it. If you don't get that first step back right, dude, you'll get smoked every time, because offensive line is all about length and leverage, dude. If you ain't got the leverage and you ain't getting your feet back in the right place, you're going to get smoked. And there was a couple of times Saturday, not just with Perkins, but you could tell, like Tykeus, bless his heart, he just wasn't quite. And it's that first game, getting it out of your system against live talent. There's a difference between maybe playing against a Missouri State or getting some time. I know in the past, Sam Pittman has took these younger tackles and played them inside at guard to kind of help them get used, because you can protect them a little more at the guard position than you can putting them out on an island at tackle.
I think that's where you come back, right, and talk about that valuable time just being in a game. You got to get comfortable in the game. I think Tykeus is going to be a really, really good player. I do. But like I said, and then the fact that Harold Perkins, so Malik gets out of the pocket and the guy chases him down from behind and makes sound tackles on him, not tripping him up, not catching
him up to
strings and barely made it, or it would have been a big run. I mean, full on wrapping him up from behind. Was a kind of a spooky thing when everybody talks about Malik Speed, fastest person on the field, Like, well, if he's on the field with Harold Perkins, I think Harold Perkins might be the fastest person on the field. And he reminds me a lot of the cat that's at Dallas now, that came out of Penn State.
Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons. He reminds me of a Micah Parsons type of defender. Now, long way to go for this kid at LSU to get and sustain that, but they play the game very similarly.
Well, I mean, the kid finished with it, and I'm going to give him his props. 4 sacks, 2 hits on the quarterback, 1 hurry up on 7 pressures. I mean, he really only rushed 7 times and got home. He got home 6 out of 7, really. And here's the thing that you got to remember, that kind of, and I want to ask Ricky Stromberg this question, like, and I know they kind of half-asked it in the post-game presser, but I really would like to sit down with Ricky and go, okay, Ricky, you got 2 sacks. Are you calling out? Because I'll be honest, I've watched him some, and I've been around a lot of centers and watched a lot of guys. The really, really elite guys, the first thing they're doing, if they know a guy's wrecking, they're calling that guy out and like going, hey, protection here, or protection here, or they're 40s here. They're calling that Mike or that Will out. And I don't see Ricky doing that a lot. And I wonder if that's just the way that they've coached him, or if it's just a developmental thing that Ricky hadn't picked up yet. But, well as I do, you get in the NFL, you got to know where the heat's at, and you got to be able to call it out, or your quarterback's going to kill you.
I see him pointing things out. I mean, he was directing traffic. I was at the game Saturday, and that's one thing. I'm trained, unfortunately, to not watch the ball. I have watched so many hours of film that, if there's a great catch or something, I usually have to watch it on the Jumbotron afterwards, because I'm watching, whether I watch it on the film or on TV or at the game, I generally just watch the offensive line and defensive line. And, they picked up most things. I think the issue was Saturday is that, everybody's like, well, we should have left the tight end in, or we should have chipped with a running back, or we should have done this after you realize, hey, this is what's going on. I think, honestly, what they were trying to do is get as many people into routes as they could for Malik or for Cade to have someone to throw it to. That they weren't going to be able to hold in 6 or 7 guys in protection, because we were just going to get eaten up on the back end. I mean, it was kind of, damned if you do, damned if you don't on that deal. And we got beat some, right? I mean, it's one of those things that happens. I wish that we would have run the ball better. I think that we had spurts there where we had some good runs, but the longest run I can remember is after the fumble inside the 10 or right at the 10 is when AJ ran for about 8 yards. I think that outside of a quarterback, right? On Malik broke a couple. I think Cade broke maybe a 15 or 20 yarder, but those were just scrambles and everybody was running for their life. It was a jailbreak, but yeah.
I mean, outside of Malik, Malik had 18 for 79. Rocket Sanders had 12 carries for 46. AJ Green was 7 for 31. I think that's that long run. The longest run we had all day was 14 yards. You didn't see in LSU, give them credit. Their front 7 did the job of containing the running backs and not letting them get outside and get too much space. The problem Saturday, and this is what happens when you ain't got you don't have a KJ, and I've talked some about KJ's mechanical things and some of the things I see with him. But with like Hornsby, he's got that long loop and throwing motion. So the ball seems like forever because it's over top to get out. Now it's got some zip on it. Now it's buttered up and ready to go. But he needs to learn how to throw biscuits like they do at Lambert's. You ain't got to kill everybody, and I think some of that, it hurts him a little bit just mechanically. And it's little things that they can fix. Then you go to a Cade Fortin who's got more of a pro style the way his throw motion is, the zip on the ball, he gets the ball out a little bit faster. And you could kind of tell the difference between how they were going to have to call the game by the way LSU was playing against us. It seemed like Fortin had a little better opportunity getting the ball out. He finished 8 of 13 for 92 yards, got the touchdown late in the third quarter, had 5 carries for 24 yards. But, Hornsby, to my opinion, unless, and I love, my whole deal with Coach Briles is my deal, but I think we've got to look future state. Like, we got to really focus on the quarterback position and getting these guys behind them mechanically ready to play in the game, because you can tell there's a huge drop. It's just like some of the other positions we've talked about this year, going from the 1s to the 2s to the 3s. You're seeing a huge slide. These guys have got to do a better job getting ready to play. Coach Kelly, man, appreciate you joining us. I know you had some stuff going on. You're running a little behind.
Yeah, I was way behind. Sorry about that. I apologize.
Oh, it's all good, brother. We appreciate you taking time to join us tonight. We talked about the offensive line coach before you got here. In your opinion, what are you seeing with the offensive line the last couple of games? I mean, is it just communication? Is it just the schemes that are getting thrown at them? I mean, what's your opinion on it?
Well, honestly, the number one thing is our guys watch whenever we go. And I'm a guy that likes a pace. I like a quick pace. I like to hurry up tempo. I think it makes the D-line tired. But I'm gonna tell you, you've got to be able to teach your old linemen how to play that game too, with making quick decisions with different fronts and different shades and those kinds of things. And our O-line, watch us when we are going slow pace, how good they are, and then watch when we don't. They're a little bit confused at times. That's when I think we make our mistakes, is when we do our hurry up. And again, that's so against my nature because I love the fast pace. But again, we spend a whole lot of time working up our schemes that make it really simple when we're in that pace. And they're trying to do the same schemes both times. Well, when you're going that fast pace, they barely have time to communicate when the alignment's changed by the defense. And so to me, I don't put it on them. I think they've shown us they're fully capable of being really good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put that back on the coaches, either not recognizing that, not doing a good job of teaching them to do it on the fly like that, or not giving them an extra 2 seconds to communicate at the line of scrimmage. And I don't know what Grant would have to say to that, but somebody that's done that before. And I don't know how much fast paced y'all did. Y'all didn't really have to, but it changes things.
So I'll say we didn't do a whole lot of fast pace. We did a lot of huddle. We switched sides though. So we had strong and weak. So we kind of threw some different looks at the defenses. But when we did go fast pace, it was very defined in what our responsibilities were, right? It was not a second guess type of thing. I mean, it was literally slide left, slide right, or full line block left, full line block right. I mean, there was not a whole lot of
which is what you have to do when you're going really fast, because you have no idea how they're going to be aligned, where's the linebacker going to be walked up at, all that kind of stuff. And the way I counteracted that in high school was we went so fast that we locked the defense into one thing. They didn't have time to change. They might have choreographed it like you script out your offense on the first, second series. They might have been able to choreograph it for 2 series, but after that, they were locked in. So I think if you're going to go fast with our offensive line, you better go so fast that you lock them into the same thing with the way that we currently communicate and expect and have expectations for our line.
It was, we had Rip and Liz protections. Liz, anything that came into that gap on your left was yours. Whether your guy left and the linebacker came, your gap to the left. Rip, same thing to the right. And we had Ram in line. If it was Ram, you had center guard tackle on a slide protection, same thing, gap scheme, backside was man-to-man. So, you would hear Ryan come up, rip, 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 Liz, Ram, line, whatever it was, and boom, we immediately knew what was going on. And then you had, your outside and inside zones, and it was, 39 was left, 38 was right, and it was 38, and you were going. It was not too complex on the things that we tried to do. I think you're right, Coach. I mean, it's incredibly hard to read a defense when you're not blocking something that's kind of rudimentary. When there's complexities to it, you're just adding, more difficulties to have to work through in a split second.
Yeah, and we're going quick, but we're going just quick enough for it to screw our line up, but not quick enough for it to help them out. That's kind of, in my experience of 30 years of going fast offense, I had to learn the hard way too. Because if I was going hurry up and wasn't going fast enough, it did us an injustice more than it did us a justice. So,
no, you're absolutely right, Coach. I mean, one of the things that I looked at, it's second time this year we've lost back-to-back games. First time since 19 that we've lost back-to-back games in Fayetteville. I want to see going forward, what's it going to take? This team, let me back up. This team ain't played a 4-quarter game all year. I mean, we've had the defense play really, really great the last 2 weeks. The offense has not played good. Or we've had the offense play really, really good and the defense not play good. I mean, what's it going to take? We got 2 games left in the season. We got Ole Miss on Saturday. We got Missouri the Friday after Thanksgiving. We got one more game they got to win to get bowl eligible. Secretly, I'm kind of hoping we get to that 6th game because it'd be an easy bowl trip for me because they'll probably come to Birmingham. So I just got to go like 20 minutes down the road, go watch them play. So that'd be awesome. But I know that ain't what we wanted at the beginning of the season, but a bowl game's a bowl game at this point. What's it going to take to get this team on track?
well,
we're
think
10 games, we're 11 games into the season. I mean, what are they going to be able to do going forward? I mean, we've already seen today, we've seen one player bugged out. I mean, Warren Thompson, I don't know if you guys heard, Coach, I don't know if you saw this. Warren Thompson cleaned his locker out and he's off the roster. So you're starting to see some I don't call it cracks, but you're starting to see some things where guys are like, okay, I'm going to go do my thing.
Ship.
Yeah.
I mean, they're jumping ship. I think on track's the wrong word because it's too late in the season to get on track. I mean, the track's over with,
Yeah.
you can get back on it and it's over. But I think what you try to do is you go in there and you try to figure out a way to win these last couple games and finish the season strong going into next year, leave a good taste in everybody's mouth, those kinds of things. And we're in another position. And I don't know if y'all may have already talked about this, but the LSU game, one of the things I said last week was we're lucky because we're playing them coming off of Bama.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that comes off Bama, they give you a little hope because they come out flat. And LSU was a shadow of what they played against Bama. And I think you could all agree. They didn't look like the same team. Well, Ole Miss is going to be the same way. I mean, Lane Kiffin wants to beat them. He had them jazzed up. If they win that game, they're in control of the SEC West. And they played a close game. So one of the things that'll help us is the fact of the shape that Ole Miss comes in psychologically. But if I was our coaches, I would be wanting to attack that early. I mean, I would have a real aggressive game plan on both sides of the ball early in the game when they're kind of walking through going through the motions of the psychology of coming off Bama week and losing in their mind the driver's seat to the SEC championship game. I mean, if they win that game, they're in the driver's seat for that. And so they've lost that. They lost a chance for the playoffs. They lost everything in that one game. So we need to attack that early. We need to have a little fun with our guys, maybe a couple trick plays, be real aggressive on offense. I'd be real aggressive on defense. I'd bring a lot of pressure. I'd cram the box and make the guy beat. I mean, with Ole Miss, their quarterback's been coming on and doing better lately, throwing the ball a little bit, but their running game and the way they run it and the speed at which they do it, it gets guys confused on defense, gets them in the wrong gap, and you leave a gap open and it's over with, and they just run through it. We need to have a plan where we attack them rather than be attacked early again while they're still going through the motions. That would be mine, and I would be preaching that to our guys all week long, that we're going to jump on them early on both sides of football.
Coach, you're absolutely right. We're gonna pause the football talk for just a minute. I want to touch on a couple things from a basketball point of view. We're going to shift gears for just a second. Big news coming out of Fayetteville this weekend and today. Coach Musselman picked up 2 5-star recruit commitments and letters of intent this week. 5-star point guard Landon Blocker, and then 5-star tonight, 5-star center / forward. This guy's like 6'11", runs the floor like a deer. Bay Fall signed his letter of intent tonight. They missed out on the Diop kid. Both these kids are playing in Colorado, I think. They missed out on the Diop kid. He's going to stay in home, play at Colorado. But shout out to those 2 guys, man. We're tickled to see, what Coach Musselman's doing. I mean, that's 5 5-stars in 2 classes. And the recruitment's, I mean, there's still got a couple other guys they're going after for the 23 class, but 5 5-stars in 2 classes is huge. I don't care what sport you're in. That's especially in basketball. That's a big deal. We're going to go ahead and shift into Greg's Razorback Sports Report real quick. Greg, what's been going on the Hill? I mean, I know we've got women's basketball. We had NCAA soccer. We had volleyball. We've had men's basketball last Friday night. Give us an update on what's going on with the Razorbacks.
Also, who got a 5-star was the women's basketball team. They got Talia Scott. So that was really big for our women's team. So tomorrow, our volleyball team traveled to Columbia to take on the Missouri Tigers at 7, SEC volleyball game. Then at 7 as well, our men's basketball team takes on South Dakota State. I'm really excited for that game. It's going to be crazy. I'm loving what I'm seeing from this men's team this year. On the 17th, the women's basketball team plays Kent State at 7. And then on the 18th, our women's soccer team takes on Ohio State in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Our women's soccer team has looked absolutely incredible since the SEC championship. On the 19th, we've got the men and women's cross-country NCAA championships. And then our volleyball team, we host the Crimson Tide to start a 2-game series. The first game being Saturday at 12, and then Sunday we play at 3. So I'm hoping that we sweep the Crimson Tide this weekend. On the 20th, our basketball team travels down to Little Rock to take on the Trojans at 1. And then on the 21st, we have round 1 of the Maui Invitational where we take on Louisville. Again, really excited for that tournament. We play them at 4. That's when it tips off, and it's going to be on ESPNU or 2. Excuse me. That's what we got for the upcoming week.
I don't know about you guys. Like this is one of my favorite times of year because Thanksgiving week you get basketball wall to wall from Monday to Thursday. We got football all day Thursday. We got football all day Friday, football all day Saturday, and football all day Sunday. The only thing that screws me up, Grant, is this opening weekend of duck season, and it always messes me up because I got to make a decision. Do I go duck hunting or do I watch the hogs? So it's that. But real quick shout out to our main show sponsor, Mid Delta Land Management Company out of Lake Village, Arkansas. These guys serve the entire state of Arkansas with specific land management strategies targeted to get the best value out of your property and increase your annual income return and produce premium land appreciation. Call our partners at Mid Delta Land Management today at 870-737-2217 to schedule an appointment. All right, we're at the part of the show that I've been looking forward to all week. I hate Ole Miss. Like I'm an Eastern Arkansas kid. Next to Texas, Ole Miss is probably the one that I hate the most. Like I was raised, I think I was beaten. It was beat into me as a young child. I hate Ole Miss. I have a really good friend, Mr. Bill Flowers, played with Eli. It was played in the 0-1 game in Oxford, the 7 overtime game. So I have to give him a shout out every year. When that game comes up, I give him a shout out on the 4th and 25th. So I make sure I keep him abreast and make sure I give him as much crap as I can about Ole Miss football. Ole Miss is coming in at 6:30 Saturday night, first night game we've had all season. First conference night game, I should say. SEC Network. Ole Miss right now, I'm going to double check the line, Coach. I want to say we are 2.5 point dogs at home with an over and under of 60.5. The money line's hanging around Arkansas plus 114. Ole Miss, last year was a barn burner. It was a 52-51 football game. Neither one of the teams wanted to play defense. KJ had a chance at the end last year, and we just couldn't quite get the conversion to go. But Ole Miss is coming into Fayetteville off a 6-point loss to Bama. They're 8-2 on the season and 4-2 in conference play. Ole Miss's total offense is ranked 13th nationally, and they got the 16th or 60th total defensive unit in the NCAA. One thing I've looked at, Coach, and this is something we followed all year, is third down for Arkansas offensively and defensively. Third down for defense for the Hogs, 117th. Third down for offense for Mississippi, 9th. Ole Miss puts themselves in position to be positive ahead of the chains, and I think that some of that's that Lane Kiffin offense, the way he likes to call a game. But it's reversed for Ole Miss. They're 57th on defense, and we're 25th on offense on third down. To my estimation, Coach, and I'd love to get your feedback on this. Like, I think it's really that game's going to be won or lost on third down this weekend.
Yeah, the best defense for third down lacking is if you're on offense is don't get to third down.
Yeah.
If we could somehow do that, we'd be a better situation. But I think you're right, and they're equipped where they don't mind running the ball on third down, and they can get it. We can do that a little bit. Ours is a little different. It might be with KJ and some different things, but they're ninth because they get a lot better yardage on first and second down. They're in shorter yardage situations on third down than we are, which is more manageable. I mean, then they're in a situation, if it's 3rd and 3 for them, you truly have to defend the pass and the run. And because you don't know which one they're going to do, if we're in 3rd and 8, I mean, you kind of got to throw the ball and they can get ready and put their, they can sub in, put in different defensive package and know to call something that's going to beat our weakness in that situation. So definitely the advantage goes to them there. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm really amazed at how balanced they are. I mean, Dart's throwing for about a little over 210 yards a game, and they're rushing for about the same amount. And that's just if you're that. And I'm not a balanced guy, but they do it very effectively and efficiently. It's not like they're throwing 3-yard passes. They'll rev you up, get you used to that run, RPO. You look up, and they've got a 20-yard pass down the middle behind those linebackers that are coming downhill to that line of scrimmage. And, Kiffin's one of the best, we talk about play callers, Matt, and you and I have, and we talked about Petrino and how good he is. Lane Kiffin's a good play caller.
Good.
He does a really, really nice job. And we just better hope that the Bama syndrome is as strong as I think, or that, Vegas knows something. It's 2.5 points, but
I personally hope he's paid attention to going to Auburn and how much money Jimmy Sexton's going to get him out of the Tigers for the next 3 or 4 years, and not thinking about what he's going to do at the Arkansas game.
He might be.
I mean, talking about Ole Miss's offense, I mean, the kid that impresses me is the one that everybody's talking about, is this freshman out of Alabama. Alabama, I don't know how they missed this kid and didn't get this kid to Tuscaloosa. Number 4, Quinshawn Judkins. He leads the Rebels with 1,171 yards, 5.7 yards per carry. 45% of the yards for the team, which I think they got 2,500, almost 2,600 yards as a team. And the kid scored 15 touchdowns as a freshman. I mean, this kid he's lightning in a bottle when he gets the ball in his hand.
I'm assuming Bama offered the kid, right?
I'm going to be honest. I don't know. I'm going to have to go back and look. Because I personally, I mean, I live down here and I'd never heard of the kid. Like, he come from one of those little bitty small communities that's kind of off in the middle of nowhere. I had not heard of this kid.
Well, if Bama hadn't heard of him, they heard of him after 135 yards and a couple touches on him last week.
I know it. I think this game's truly going to be a battle up front. Arkansas's rush defense is only allowing 146 yards a game, and the Rebels are averaging 259, almost 260 a game on the ground. I think this is going to be a classic battle between what's Barry Odom do with his front seven versus what Ole Miss is going to scheme up running the football. Can they get to Jackson Dart? Because, I mean, we saw last week Alabama was getting to Dart. Dallas Turner got to him. Will Anderson Will Anderson was a little slow last week, kind of injured, but they were getting to Dart, and Dart doesn't do well when the tackles are closing in on him. It seems like when the pocket starts to close up, because he's not a Matt Corral that's going to bust out a seam and bust a 15, 20-yard run on you. He wants to stand up tall and throw the football. I'll be honest. I think we might eat a little bit on Sunday or Saturday. I think the defense, if they can keep that dial turned up, on the front end of the defense, I think those guys may get some sacks again on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, especially if we can just have a semi-good effect on first and second down against the run and put them in a couple of tough third downs, that plays right into our hands.
Well, going back to your point about first and second down, I mean, we blitzed more on first down than we have in a while last week. I mean, the last time I saw them blitzing like that was South Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, they were dialing up some things with Dominic, with Gregory, and the guys in the middle were doing work. I mean, that says a lot about LSU. LSU, I thought their issues were going to be more on the outside with those two freshman tackles, but LSU seemed to struggle more the inside game, guys getting in gaps and getting pushed around. Because I was really, and Grant, I'd love to hear your take on this. Like I was watching LSU's, between the guard and the centers, it seemed like their gaps were really, really wide to me. I mean, it was almost a man across, and you expect it to be like half or three-quarter, but it seemed like you could run a truck through there if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think they had a scheme they were trying to put together. I think they may have been trying to protect those tackles a little bit, like you said. I mean, I think we have proven that we can get to the quarterback, right? A few key guys. I mean, you start talking about Drew Sanders, obviously, the cat from Georgia Tech. The name's
Dominic.
Escaping me right now. Yeah, Dominic.
Yeah, Jordan Dominic.
Mm-hmm. We have proven that we have the ability to do that. We're at the point now, and going back to kind of what you and Coach were talking about getting things back on track where the track's kind of gone. We're at a point where we got nothing to lose and everything to gain. I mean, truly, we've got 2 games to win one, and that should be the goal, right? Yeah, you want to win both of them. I completely agree. Go win them both. But we need to get bowl eligible. We need to get some of these guys into bowl practice. You get a second, you get a second spring practice out of it, essentially. And so I think that's the goal. So we turn it up, keep bringing what you were doing against LSU, against Ole Miss. I think Coach is exactly right. You see the hangover a little bit from Alabama. You probably get about, at most, a one-quarter gift, which is that first quarter of everybody's kind of sluggish. They may be looking past Arkansas a little bit to that Mississippi State game. That's going to be a big game. But I think LSU this past week probably tried to protect the tackles a little bit because we've proven we can get to the quarterback, left some gaps open on the inside. And we did a good job taking advantage of that. But we've proven we can do it. I think offensively, we talked about it early in the show, and Coach, I'll get your opinion on it too. I think we finally answered the suspicions around we can't go without KJ. It's proven now that we don't go if KJ doesn't go. So we've got to be able to run the ball regardless of if KJ's in there or not. So if we don't set the precedent next week of starting fast, running the ball, I don't think Vegas probably hits on the 2.5 point line that they've got on this game, which maybe they're just suckering people into these bets. But dadgum, I mean, they had it right on the head last week, and if we can keep it within 2.5 this week, then I think we've got a chance to beat them.
My big concern is, we're going to be so focused on the run game, stopping the run, we're going to give up something on the back end. I mean, a lot of folks, they'll think, well, Mister didn't have the receivers they maybe had 3 or 4 years ago. Don't sleep on Jonathan Mingo. That kid can go play in the slot and play outside. He leads the Rebs 37 catches for 723 yards and 5 TDs. His average yard per catch is around 19.5. Quick note on Jackson Dart, 2,123 yards passing, 15 TDs and 7 INTs. His QBR is like 76. And on those INTs, 5 of those are pressure INTs where he's throwing a ball in places he doesn't need to throw it because he's got somebody breathing down his neck. Defensively from Ole Miss, there's 4 guys that I've got circled. Defensive end, Jared Ivey, linebacker, Trey Brown, safety, AJ Finley, and then cornerback, DeAndre Price, excuse me. Price is probably going to be an all SEC guy, first or second team at corner. He's really, really talented, got great ball skills. I'm going to give you guys a couple things that I want to see, and then I'd love to hear your guys' take on this, things I want to see out of this week's game. I want to see motivation on both sides of the ball. And by motivation, I mean like the competing for 4 quarters, no down minutes. I want to see some fire on the field. When guys make big plays, I want to see guys running in there and giving them their flowers and saying, "Hey, great job. Now let's go do it again." And that's where the enthusiasm piece comes in. I think this crowd's going to show up Saturday night. I think they're going to tailgate all day. I don't give a crap how cold it is. I think the game time temperature is supposed to be, 25 or 28 degrees with like a 15-mile-an-hour wind coming out of the top of the Broyle Center. So it's going to be cold. There's going to be, a lot of things going on. But we all know our fan base is either really, really good or they're really, really bad. Like there ain't no in between. We're either rowdy or they're quiet. And I really want to see, because the fans will feed off what this team does on the field. And if the team's playing rowdy, and just like you said, Grant, playing like they got nothing to lose, because they really don't at this point in the season, they got nothing to lose. If the coaches are calling the game like they've got nothing to lose, the fans, we saw last week at Auburn. I mean, that was an ugly, nasty, just gross football game. But you saw 80,000 people show up for an embattled football team, a bad football team, but 80,000 people showed up, and you showed what a crowd can do to keep a team going and keep them in a game. I just want to see them make it ugly early. I want to see the offensive, defensive lines take control of the line of scrimmage and then get after them, like pin their ears back and just get after them. And then obviously, I want to see a win Saturday night. I can't lose to Ole Miss. Like, if we lose to Ole Miss twice in a row, I'm never going to hear the end of it from my friend Bill and some of the other guys I went to school with that went to Ole Miss.
I'm a Lane Kiffin fan. How you like that?
Not
really. I didn't like the way he left it. I didn't like the way he left Tennessee, and I didn't like what he did at Oakland and all that. But I do think he's a good play caller. I enjoy watching him call plays. I'll say that. I'm not a Lane Kiffin fan. I thought I'd throw you for a loop, Matt. But what I want to do is what I want to see is what I said earlier. I want to see us attacking early on both sides. The other thing I want to see us to do is have some sustained drives to keep them off the field. I mean, just to take the pressure off of the defense, because when they go out there, they know it's just going to be lightning. And I think Grant was right. I think we're going to get a free quarter. We get a quarter before they come off that to establish something. Even if it's not a big lead, we get a quarter to establish something with them, to hit them, to let them know we're more physical than they are, whatever we decide that is. We get 1 quarter to do that. We better take advantage of that quarter, because if we don't take advantage of that quarter, they'll run us out of our own stadium.
I think for me, it's I kind of talked through it just a minute ago, but I think we have to establish a run game, right? And then we've got to be able to adjust, because they're not just going to let us run the ball down their throat. If they come in and try to stop the run, then we've got to be able to do something to combat that. We haven't seen that, right? I mean, there's 2 straight games now where they have committed to saying, you will not run the ball on us, and we have had no answer. And so what is our second identity, right? We want to run the ball. You can't do it. What's the next best thing, right? And so I think we're still trying to find what that identity is. And, I hope they took the last 2 weeks of film and they're taking this week of practice to figure out what's the next best option. Because I guarantee you, Ole Miss is going to line up and say, number 5, number 0, whoever's back there, they're not going to beat us by running the ball. We're going to make them throw them. I think the big thing on defense is Ole Miss is going to make plays. I mean, that's just what they do. They're going to hit a big run. They're going to have some passes. There's going to do some things really good on offense. We're going to bust a coverage. Something's going to happen. But can we continue to fight through that and come up with big stops inside the 20, hold them to field goals, keep it relevant for the offense that can hopefully find a second identity and continue to stay in the game. The defense is going to be the biggest part of this game. I mean, they're going to have hold Ole Miss at bay, just like they did with LSU. LSU comes off 38 points against Alabama. You know, I would have bet that they probably would have scored 42 against us, and we hold them to 13, right? We've got to have another performance like that or somewhere close for this one to stay even relevant, because I think Coach is right. I mean, they'll run us out of our own stadium if we don't commit to stopping them. And the last thing is, you know, I think the crowd is going to show up. It's a 6:00 game, first night game in forever, it seems like. You know, I think that the majority of the fans are still behind the team. There's still a lot out there to play for. Bowl eligibility, you win 2, these next 2, you get a little bit better bowl game. You win 1 out of the 2. We're probably going to be subjected to going to Matt's neck of the woods in Birmingham, which, hey, you know what, like we'll take it, I guess. But no, I think that's the keys of the game for me. Look, we have to either establish a run or figure out what we're going to do, and we've got to be able to hang with them on defense. Lastly, I just looked it up. Judkins was not even recruited by Alabama. It's not even on his recruiting profile. Notre Dame, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida State, Florida. Go down the list of all the, you know, quote unquote blue bloods. They were on there. Alabama's not even listed. So anyway, they missed one in their own backyard on that deal.
Good to see they can miss one. You said something I thought was really important. And it might have been the thing that really turned our season into a tailspin. And that is, you said, when we do make a mistake, fight through it. Mm-hmm. Go back to Texas A&M and the jump fumble. And we didn't fight through that. Go, I'm just off the top of my head, go to the Bama game. We fought all the way back, got the onside kick, but their backup quarterback makes the long run. And then what happens? 2 more long ones after that. We didn't fight through that one back-breaking moment. There's 2 kinds of teams, those that have a back-breaking moment and those that don't let their back get broken, you know, and that's what you're right. That one thing, there's been one big play that you could look and go, God, that play doesn't happen, the whole world's different. And you're right. I think we've got to, and it always happens. They happen so much in football, and we haven't been able to fight through those. That's a great point.
How concerning is it that we're, you know, going into our 11th game and we still don't really have a second identity?
Well, it's too late to be concerned this year.
Yeah, I mean it's a big concern. I think that's why we're 5-5, right?
Right.
I mean, you know, I think truth be told, we're probably better suited for a 7-3 team. I mean, I think, you know, your field goal away at A&M, although we didn't win, found a way to lose that one. Probably should have beat Liberty, shoulda, coulda, woulda, didn't beat them, right? So here we are. But I think the last two games specifically is really the 2 games that we have not run the ball. Liberty, and we talked about it on my first time on this podcast. We knew that they were going to say, you will not run they've got to commit 10 to the box and leave a receiver by himself. They are not going to run the ball. And I think LSU probably just took a play out of that book, said, hey, look, it worked for these guys. It's got to be able to work for us. Let's shut it down. And so that's what they've done. And you've got to expect Ole Miss to come in and do the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's a big concern. And I think if that's what our identity is going to be moving forward as a football program, then either, number one, you got to figure out how to combat them not letting us run the ball, or you've got to find a second identity. And, you know, you've got 2 games this year and the offseason, figure out what that's going to be going into, you know, a pretty pivotal year for the whole coaching staff next year, to be completely honest.
Well, I mean, Grant, to your point, talking about being a pivotal year, I mean, the days of, and everybody talked about it this season, the days of having the same set of coordinators 3 years in a row, it just don't happen much anymore in college football. You see guys come stay a year or 2, and then they're gone, going somewhere else, either moving to a bigger school or moving to a head coaching position somewhere else. And we'll talk about this more going towards the end of the season, because I think there's going to be some staff shuffling going on just because of that, just the trend in college football and some of the openings that are going to pop up in the next couple of weeks.
Well, I was gonna add a little bit to what Grant said, and to what Greg was talking about. In this day and age in college football, how can you not throw the ball effectively?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you are going to have to, against anybody that's got any sense. If you're Mike Leach was getting his butt beat for a couple of years by certain teams because he wouldn't run the ball. And finally, he started, what did he do against us? Run the ball. I mean, you've got to be able to do both things, especially with the rules that are slanted towards the offense these days, and not be able to hit receivers over the middle and can't hit the quarterback. You can't even rough him up a little bit without getting a penalty. I mean, all the rules are there for the offense. They're really there for the passing game. And, you've got to be able to do both of those effectively. I'm not comparing us to Clemson, but look at Clemson. Literally, the fall of their program has occurred because they can't throw the football. And when they have to throw it, they can't. And they're not the same team anymore. I mean, take them out of the playoff picture and probably don't bring them back in for a couple of years because of that. And I just think then you look at a USC, a team that's been a nobody forever. They got a good football coach, but they assembled a group of guys together that haven't played together, didn't have time to learn anything. But they can throw the football. If you can throw the football, you can win. If you can run the football, you can win, as long as you can do both, at least semi-effectively. And that's where we've struggled lately. And it's kind of depressing to see, to be honest with you.
Pose a question. I was thinking about this today and living a little bit of the world of hypothetical. So KJ's got an extra year, right? I mean, he can come back. I personally think that he would benefit from coming back. I don't think that.
Absolutely.
I think he would probably be remiss by not taking another year and really solidifying himself as a solid quarterback, if that's what he wants to do at the next level. I think he's kind of got a good base built, but that's not the question. The question is, let's assume that KJ doesn't come back. What do we do as a program, knowing what we've got there, behind KJ, right? And, my feelings on it, and I'll share them right now, is, I don't know that Malik gets to the level that he needs to get to be a starting SEC quarterback, just based off of the bit of work we've seen. But I'd be interested to hear what you guys, do we go attack the portal for a kid and bring them in as a starter, similar to what we did with Felipe to get us through? Do we ride with what we've got? I mean, what do you guys, what's your theory there, assuming that KJ doesn't come back?
I was doing good until the guy showed up wearing the gray beanie. That I almost busted out laughing when I saw the beanie on the head. So we'll get to that guest here in a second, but Grant, I think we got to go to the portal. I mean, if you look at where we're sitting at their quarterback roster today, we've got one scholarship quarterback. We've got another guy that's fixing to rotate out because he's graduating in Cade Fortin. You've got Renfro, who's on his second knee injury. He's non-scholarship, but legitimately could have a scholarship. 2 years in a row been down with a knee injury. We lost a scholarship quarterback to transfer last year. I mean, you're going to have to go. I think they've only got one scholarship quarterback being recruited this year in Singleton out of Georgia. Do you hand the keys to an 18-year-old kid that's never played a down of SEC football, or do you go out to the portal and do what we did with Philippe in 20 and say, hey, come over here and play for us this year. You're going to be the guy. That's all if KJ decides to stay or go. I mean, that comes down to him. And I think it's going to be, depending on what Briles does, I think it depends on what KJ does. Honestly, if I'm KJ Jefferson, because I'm comfortable with what Briles does, if Briles leaves, I've got to consider my options. But I'm like you, looking at KJ mechanically, looking at the way KJ plays, and Coach and I have talked about this during the season. I don't think KJ is ready to go play at that next level yet, because he gets first read, like read and a half, and then he takes off running. That doesn't work in the NFL. You've got to be able to go through your progressions.
Yeah, I can tell you from being up close and personal at the NFL level, that is not going to work there. There's a reason. Look, and KJ's missed a couple games for injuries, concussions, whatever. There's a reason that it's really hard to make a living being a quarterback that runs the football, especially at the NFL level, the SEC. Then everybody goes, well, look at Lamar Jackson, and now look at Justin Fields. Number one, Justin Fields is still losing because he can't pass. So when he does have to pass, he throws picks. Everybody saw that. He's rushed for the most yards any NFL quarterback has in the history of the game the last 2 weeks and lost both games. So you've got to be able to throw the football. Lamar Jackson is smart because he's learned to throw the football, and now he can throw the football, very high efficiency rating in the NFL, and smart enough to run out of bounds and never take a hit. I mean, the guy never takes a hit. Well, KJ's running people over, and he's not quick enough to get out of the way all the time. So to me, the question might not be, we've got to go find a quarterback that can throw the ball and get through his progressions. Don't make a mistake about that. But we've got to redesign the offense a little bit. If you keep designing it where your quarterback gets beat up, you're going to have 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks because they're not going to be able to make it through the season playing Alabama and LSU and Ole Miss and getting hit like that and running the ball. Matt, you said it 15 different times on our first 4 or 5 podcasts that we can't keep expecting him to run the ball 17, 16, 19 times and make it through the season health-wise. And at the same time, when they're focusing so much time on him with his run reads, because he has to read that in, and you got to work on that mesh point and all that, it slowed his development in the passing game. And I don't know if it's their expectations of him or what it is exactly, but we're going to have a less deliberate passing game, a more complex passing game where we get to the second and third option. We've got to have a guy that can do that. We've got to go find somebody else. The coach's job is to put the best player we can find on the field to help us win that game. And if KJ's that guy and we can't find somebody better, then okay. Or if we bring somebody in that is better and KJ outworks them and outplays them, then good for us. We got better at that spot. But we've got to, because what we've seen is when teams, like Grant said, when they stack up the box and say, you're not going to run no matter what, we've got to be able to throw the football, and we can't.
Mr. John Neighbors, host Out of Bounds on 103.7 The Buzz, Locked on Hawks podcast, University of Arkansas. He calls himself a retiree. Arkansas Sportscaster Award watch list, Hogs by 90. My favorite guy on Little Rock Radio. Man, thanks for joining us tonight, John. What's your take on this? I know you talk about this all day, every day, 5 days a week, but I'd love to hear your opinion about what we're talking about real quick.
Well, first off, if I would have known that Grant Cook was going to be in here, I probably would have been here a little bit sooner if that was the case. So, and also I was looking at Coach's backdrop there. I didn't know they made ceiling fans and pinwheels were the same thing. That is a wild looking ceiling fan that I'm looking at.
This is
right
called
now.
The modern look, John. The modern.
Hey, listen, I wish I had it. And also about my beanie, I live here in an old house in Hillcrest, and it has literally 19 windows in this place. I got 8 windows in my bedroom, so it's just drafty as can be. So, but anyways, it's talking about obviously what you guys have been talking about, which seems to be on everybody's mind when it comes to the quarterback situation and everything. I don't know. I actually had I put out some numbers actually today about KJ, with and without him being in the offense. And it's pretty staggering, which I know I should say a healthy KJ, because I feel like the Liberty game was more of an example of him just not being healthy. And it's pretty incredible when you look at the numbers that when KJ Jefferson is playing healthy, Arkansas is averaging about 37 points per game. Mm-hmm. And when he's not, that's 15. When he's in there, they're averaging nearly 500 yards of offense per game. When he's not, it's about 120 yards less than that per game. I mean, there's no doubt about it that this offense goes as KJ goes. And I had so many people when I put out those stats saying, well, then that just goes to show you that it's the offensive coordinator problem. And it's Kendall Briles because he's unable to develop a backup quarterback that can be able to run the offense. And maybe this is my simplistic way of looking at it, but I feel like, and this is something I just thought about, where, getting quality backup quarterbacks at your school is not as prevalent as it once was. People always bring up, and I know Grant, back when you played, when Ryan Mallett went out and Tyler Wilson came in that game against Auburn, everyone was like, oh, that's the way it should be every single time. But my theory behind it is that honestly, if you have really great backup quarterbacks, either one, that's kind of the exception to the rule, or two, you're not going to have them for very long, because guess what? Those great backup quarterbacks want to play, and they'll go somewhere where they can play. And so that's why you see so many of them transferring out and everything too. So I just feel like with what Arkansas has done with KJ, you know, would you like to have more success out of the backup quarterbacks? Of course you would. But I also just feel like that's kind of the way in college football where, man, most important position is the quarterback. Most important position is your starting quarterback. And if your starting quarterback isn't healthy enough, I mean, I'd just be hard pressed to find any other teams besides maybe like the, you know, Georgias and Alabamas in the world where the backup quarterback comes in and plays just as good, or at least to that level of the starting quarterback. It's just doesn't seem like it's a thing anymore. So I don't know. I just feel like it's really unfortunate and in a way unfair. And it's, you know, it's just the way the college football is. You can't make excuses for it. But man, I still think that if KJ Jefferson's 100% healthy against Liberty and LSU, Arkansas wins those games, and they're on a 4-game win streak right now.
Yeah, and John, you're absolutely right. I mean, the transfer portal has changed the way quarterbacks view the game these days. You know, you look at when Tyler was there behind Ryan, he knew Ryan had a year, maybe 2 left, and he was going to the NFL. He knew he was going to sit as a freshman because Petrino really has never in his history, other than maybe Lamar Jackson, he really never played freshman much. So he knew he was going to have to sit a year when he came to Arkansas. But, you know, he also was drawn by the Petrino lore of coming in, hey, you're going to throw for a crap ton of yards. You're going to have an opportunity to get to that next level in the NFL. And I think that's my only thing, John, with Briles' offense is I go back to Houston, I go back to FAU, I go back to Baylor, looking at what quarterbacks he's had that's gone on to the next level. I haven't seen the development to get them to the NFL. And that's where I kind of like, maybe we need to look at a little tweaking some things, maybe quarterback coach, something like that. But I mean, we all know Alabama got to be Alabama because they're developing guys to go to the NFL. I mean, I looked at the numbers the other day. In my lifetime, I went to my first Hog game in 1983. We beat Rice 31-0. Okay. I'm 43 years old. In 40 years, Alabama's put almost 400 guys in the NFL. We've put right at 200. So it's, of course, there was SWC, SEC's different, but the gap there is so big. To get there, you've got to have guys develop and go on and play in the NFL to continue to, it's just like we talked about it earlier, Grant, getting a guy like a Drew Sanders to come to Fayetteville and play and then show out at a high level helps us get that next 4 or 5 star linebacker to come in. And I think that's what it's going to take, is seeing that guy develop and go, okay, this guy's on the national stage. He's All-American. He's up for a Heisman. He's up for a Davey O'Brien. That's going to help us get the next quarterback. I mean, you know, being a salesman, I know if I sell Greg a truck, if my service and parts group don't support that truck, I'm not going to sell him another one, you know? So it's a give and take relationship, I think, on that part. So,
well, guys are using that against Briles in recruiting. I promise you. I've heard it myself. I've heard them. They've told me, you know, that they're selling the fact that he's not developed anybody that has gone on, been successful in the NFL. And that's a viable argument. Their offense doesn't dictate the reads and progressions and the pre-snap reads and things that get you ready for the NFL. Now, not faulting him. He's trying to win a college football game. And if he decides this is what's best for Arkansas to win a college football game, that's what he gets paid to do. But I think you're right, to your point, Matt. It makes it tough to get a quarterback that can stand back there in the pocket, make the reads, make the decisions, because that's not what it's designed to do at Arkansas. It's not what he's getting taught to do. And it doesn't look like that's what he's expected to do.
No, you're absolutely right. All right, guys, I you know, we've been talking football for almost an hour and 10 minutes. I want to get into these picks, man. This is my favorite part of the week. Coach Kelly's weekly pick 'em here on Big Pig Energy. It's the reason I asked John to join us. I want to see John's prognostication skills bumped up against Grant Cook, against Coach Kelly. Last week's stats, week 11, Coach Greg, Grant, myself all went 4-2. Queen Bee, Brooke went 3-3. Danny went 3-3, and that old boy from FQ Arkansas went a paltry 2-4 on the weekend. I feel bad for old Will. He had to head back to South Carolina with his tail between his legs. Season standings. Coach Kelly's 49-21. Greg's tied with him in first place at 49-21. I'm pulling right up behind him, 3 games out at 46-25. Danny's 39-31. Queen Bee is 17-10, and Grant's 8-4. John, real quick, it's real simple. Let's pick them. I'm going to throw out the over and under and the line on the game, but we're going to just straight up pick them. Just pick a team. I'm going to start with Greg. We'll go to Grant, then go to Coach, then you, and then I'll go last. SMU at Tulane. Tulane's picked -3 in Dallas this weekend, over and under 65. Greg, who you got?
Oh, man. I'm going to go SMU.
Grant?
I'm gonna go Tulane.
You're going with the green wave. God, I was really thinking you were going to go with Rhett Lashley for some reason. That shocks me a little bit. John, what you got, buddy?
Man, I think I'm gonna ride with Tulane as well. I don't know. It's just like one of those things. This is weird, but it's like I've always, for some reason, liked Tulane. I don't know why. Like, I don't think it was a kid. I think it was like my favorite color was green growing up, and they're the green wave. And I don't really have an explanation for it, so I kind of always root for them. So I think they'll win this one.
I think it might be the New Orleans thing. You like the New Orleans attachment, don't you?
Well, I've never been to New Orleans, to be honest. Yeah, so I was supposed to go to the Sugar Bowl when it was down there, but I had this thing called money that I didn't have, and so I wasn't able to make it down there.
Well, you should have done, if we'd had Twitter back in those days. I mean, you could have done the Josh Teeter thing and got yourself sponsored and got yourself to the game. I mean,
John, all you had to do, we had, hey, don't date us that much, Matt. We had Twitter back in the day. Good grief.
Well, man. I guess that's right. I forget.
Man.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry. Y'all don't have as much gray in the beard as I got, but
all you had to do, John, just shoot me a private message on Twitter, man. I had a ticket with your name on it. I was waiting for you to send me a message.
Man, my bad. I guess I'm just 13 years too late, man. So, next time, though. Next time, I'll hit you up and we'll go.
That's awesome. Coach, who you got, man?
Man, I want to say Lashley can pull it out because he's a buddy of mine, but Tulane is finding a way to win games, and so I think they're going to win it this week. I hate to side with everybody else, but I definitely think they're going to win the game.
See, I got to go with Rhett. I mean, I can't pick against Rhett, man. I like Coach Lashley a lot. I got to go SMU. John, you're going to love this one. Texas at Kansas. Texas is favored by -9 in Lawrence. Over and under is 64. Greg, who you got?
Kansas. I'm not doing this Texas thing.
I love it. Grant, go ahead.
They hadn't failed me yet. Coach and I called it out at Kansas State a couple weeks ago. And I think Texas is I'm not going to say Texas is back because I think that's stupid, but I will say that I think Texas is playing pretty good football. So I'm gonna take them over the Jayhawks.
John, what you got?
Well, first off, speaking of stupid, I don't understand how Texas can be 6-4 and be the 18th best team in the country. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I understand that rankings don't really matter except for college football playoff rankings when you're up there, but like how? Whatever. But it's just like I want Kansas to win because it's always like fun to see a team like that, be able to do that. But the whole Jeff Long angle really rubs me the wrong way too. So I'm kind of torn here. I'll take Texas though. I mean, if I'm going off of my head, not my heart, I'm going to go with Texas and winning this game.
Coach.
Really quick, I'm going to tell John why Texas is ranked 18th in the country because they lost by 1 point to number 1 then ranked Bama. They lost in overtime to Texas Tech. They lost in overtime to Oklahoma State. So all 3 of those losses, literally one play, changes the game. And they lost by 1 score. So all their scores been 1 loss. Lost by 1 score to number 4 TCU. So played a big schedule, lost by 1 score every time, 3 times in overtime. I mean, I think that's why. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't be, but I think that's why. They're a good football.
Yeah, just hang the banner for them on their close games, man. Whatever they can put a title ring on it.
I'm just saying
they might be the champions this year.
I'm just saying why they're ranked high. I'm not saying I'm for it. I say you lose, you freaking lose. You find a way to lose, you find a way to lose. But but I do think they're a better football team. Kansas is the Cinderella of the year, right? They come in and they win 5 straight games. They have game day at Kansas. Everybody's thinking, oh, this year, whatever. Well, the pumpkin came, the wheels fell off, the horses fell down, and the slipper didn't fit the foot and all that kind of stuff. They suck, and Texas is going to kill them.
Coach. All right. See, I got to take exception with that. You know, coach is picking Texas. I didn't expect him to do anything less. I actually had wrote it down before he even made the pick, because every time I choose Texas for whatever reason, he picks Texas. I'm partial to Kansas. I've got 2 young men up there. I mentor Demarion Alexander's a defensive lineman, and then Devin Neal, the running back. And I'm going to tell you right now, Devin Neal's the reason they're going to win this game against Texas. Last year, they went down to Austin. This kid absolutely went off, ran for 250 plus, 3 scores, played a ball game of his career. The kid is really, really good football player from Kansas. I like Coach Leipold. Great guy, great coach. Fits in really well with the culture and the people in Kansas. So I'm going KU, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Saturday night, we're going to a little Pac-12 action. USC at UCLA. USC's favored by 2.5 in the Rose Bowl, over and under 75. Greg, USC, UCLA.
I'm gonna take UCLA, and that game is gonna probably hit the over.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too. Grant.
Yeah, I think it goes over as well. I'm going to take Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans.
Johnny.
Yeah, the Battle of Los Angeles, if you will. You know, I here's a hot take. At first, I think USC is going to win it, and I don't know if it's a hot take, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say USC makes it into the college football playoff too. I know they're number 7 right now.
Whoa.
But I think that if they got a tough schedule in front of them with UCLA and Notre Dame and probably Oregon in the Pac-12 title game, if they win all those, they just may jump them up there a little bit. So
you think if it comes down, if you've got a 1-loss Tennessee, TCU ends up losing a game, which they probably will. Me and Coach talked about this the other day. You think USC gets in with a Pac-12 championship over 1-loss Tennessee?
I certainly hope so, because that would be a really funny thing to happen to Tennessee fans. But honestly, yeah, I honestly do, because if I'm basing it off of what they've said, they say that they hold so much like credit towards a conference championship. So if that's the case and they run the table, plus, I mean, come on, college football wants that LA market. They want those people to be in there too.
Coach.
I'm with John on that. I think USC, if they run the table, I think they're probably in, and I think they will run the table. I do see what everybody's saying. Tennessee, harder schedule, this, that, and the other. I think he's right. College football wants the LA market. But, I mean, if you have 1 loss and another team has 1 loss, now if Tennessee had a 1 loss in the SEC championship, which they're not going to have, then that's a different deal if they both hold a championship. But when you run the table and win the championship, you know, I would put a little more weight on that too. You still beat everybody you had to win that championship and only had 1 loss. But that all said, I'm not sure they'll beat UCLA, but I'm going to pick them. I'm going to take USC over UCLA. I think if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down with a little better play caller. I think Chip Kelly's got a nice scheme, but man, I love watching Lincoln Riley's teams play. The running game's fantastic. The passing game's really good. Screen game, second to none. The guy can design and call plays, and he's not afraid to call anything anytime, which I like.
And I'm going against you again this week because I think UCLA's defense, I've watched them the last couple of weeks.
They're way better. Their defense is way better.
Their defense is a lot better, especially on the back end. As good as Caleb Williams is, as good as the receivers are at USC, I think Lincoln Riley still hasn't figured out you got to play on, but you got to play both sides. You got to play some defense because, I mean, even if they get in, they're going to have to play either Michigan or Ohio State, or they're going to have to play Georgia, and they're going to get blasted because they can't play defense. I mean, they just don't. The Pac-12 teams are notorious since the early 2000s. I mean, back in Pete Carroll's day, I mean, when they had Maluga and all those guys and Palamo and everybody else that was going through USC, they played defense back in those. They don't play defense out there anymore. All their defensive players come out here to play because nobody out there coaches defense anymore.
Right.
So I'm picking UCLA. I think it's going to be really, really close. I think it's going to be a 3 points or less. but I am taking the over. I think it's going to be way more than 75 points. Utah, another Pac-12 game, Utah to Oregon. Bo Nix is playing great football right now. Looks like completely a different ball player than what he looked at Auburn. I'm a little partial to Bo because Bo played, with my son a little bit in high school, so a little partial to Bo. But Oregon -3 at home at Autzen, over and under 61.5. Greg, who you got?
Is that a night game?
I think so, yeah.
Oh yeah, Austin Stadium is
Yeah.
going to be lit.
Place is
Greg,
nuts,
yeah.
man.
I'm taking Oregon.
Yeah, it's not just a night game. It's 9:30 Central Standard Time.
Yeah.
Like that thing is when it's starting up. So we get some
Yeah, it's
Pac-12
late.
after dark.
Yeah, it's late. Grant.
I'm just going against Greg. I'm gonna go Utah. I think that they've got some film of what Washington did last week. They can watch that. We were actually out in Utah when Utah beat USC. We were out there for the BYU game. Stopped in Salt Lake City on that Sunday coming back and hung out in there. People were still fired up about that. I think they're riding a good wave right now. No doubt it's going to be a hostile environment, but I think they'll probably pull it out.
Yeah, I mean, Autzen is, when it's rocking, I think they're right up there with any SEC environment, just based on crowd noise and the ability to get involved in a football game. Coach, go ahead.
Man, I think it's going to be a great game. I think this is something people don't know. And we think of Oregon and that offense and all this kind of stuff. I mean, they're averaging 42 points a game. Utah's averaging 39 a game. Guess who's better in third down percentage? Utah is the 21st ranked team in third down percentage offensively, and Oregon is 42nd. So I think Utah is going to do some things there. And I just can't. I never say this. Y'all are always like, I can't pick Mississippi. I can't pick a team where Bo Nix is the quarterback. I just can't do it. I've never been a fan of his play on the field. He runs around, throws it in circles, and sometimes smells like a rose. Plus, you know what? I don't think I have been to Utah. We practiced out there a couple of years ago when we played a high school team that's just a couple miles away from their stadium. Man, those Tongan and Samoan guys, BYU gets some. Utah gets the first team ones, and and those guys for their size are the fastest human beings I've ever seen, are the most athletic human beings. And I've got that because I coached one and his father climbed, he was from there, and he showed me, he starts climbing a telephone pole with his hands and feet. And I'm just like, that's unbelievable. I mean, just extremely athletic, and he's a big man. And I just think they're not going to be affected by the stadium, the night, the craziness or whatever. I think they'll just like it. And so I think they'll beat, like Grant said, they got to watch that film last week. They got an idea what to key on. I think Utah beats them.
John, I didn't mean to skip you, my friend. Utah or Oregon?
No, it's totally okay. I kind of look at Auburn in a way of like the New York Jets, the team I follow so closely, is that the quarterbacks have to leave there to actually become better. It's amazing how that works out. And so, but it's like I kind of feel the same thing with Bo Nix. Like, just incredible where if you get the right coaching and the right system and the right thing, how, everything can change for you. But that being said, kind of with Grant on this one, man, like Utah, they're just always one of those teams. It's like the big constant. Like, you just know that they're always going to be prepared. They're always going to be well coached. They may not have the 4 and 5 star players like some of the other schools, but they're really consistent. And I don't know. I was out there in Provo as well and got to be there. I tried to go to the game that night with USC and Utah, but for some reason I just couldn't make it. It was almost like I was tired or, like feeling some sort of way. But anyways, I think that Utah wins this one. I think that Oregon's going to be kind of reeling a little bit. I don't know, after being out there, I kind of root for BYU and Utah now because those people were way too friendly and it was way too weird.
Yeah, Utah's a weird place to be. I didn't get to go to BYU, but I have been to Salt Lake many times, and Utah's a weird place. I got to go with Oregon. I think Bo Nix is going to have a big night. I think, Utah is, I don't want to say Kyle Willingham's team's overrated, but I think they're not as good as what the media thought they were going to be to start the season. I think there's some holes out there based on what I've seen with them this year. And I just think Bo Nix is a little bit better than what Utah's got going on. Second to last game of the week. I went ahead and picked a SWAC game this week. All the Auburn folks have got it in their head. They're either getting Lane Kiffin or they're getting Dion. I told one of them today, I said, you guys are as delusional as we are because we thought we were getting Gruden for like a day. It was, I mean, John, you remember this? I mean, it was like everybody was like, John Gruden's coming to Arkansas, and
He's wearing a
he's
red
wearing
tie.
a red
on TV.
tie,
Yeah.
he's coming to the Hogs,
Yeah, the secret meeting at the powerhouse. I'll never forget that, where a bunch of people from Hogville like just flooded the powerhouse because they thought Jeff Long and John Gruden were meeting there. Oh man, those were the days of message boards, man. I miss them.
Well, as much as I hate a coaching search, I do like watching the plane tracking on Twitter. I got a lot of Auburn friends growing up down in Birmingham, so I kind of give them a lot of hell about tracking planes. I'm like, dude, y'all need to follow John Neighbors. I said, John is the king of he invented plane tracking. Like he's perfected. It's an art. Y'all need to follow him. But Jackson State at Alcorn State. This is a big rivalry game in the state of Mississippi. Jackson State's undefeated. Of course, prime time's coaching down there. You got his son, Shedeur Sanders, which I'll be honest with you, that kid I think could play in at SEC level. He's very, very good quarterback, very good football team. Greg, who you got? Jackson State, Alcorn State?
Taking Jackson State.
Taking the Tigers. Grant, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's kind of one of those things where until they give you a reason not to pick them, go ahead and pick them, which is got to go with Jackson State. I think they just got more athletes, and not just more athletes, but top-tier athletes that could really play anywhere in the country if they wanted to. Also, got a lot of family in Jackson, Mississippi. So sticking close to that, Jackson State takes it home.
Hey, we actually agreed.
Yeah, y'all did agree. It's the first time. John.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I go with Coach Prime, because who's SWAC if he ain't SWAC? And I mean, Dion he's all SWAC. So no, I'm rooting for Dion. I just kind of want chaos. I really hope he gets a job in the SEC somehow because man, that would be so much fun for media days. But yeah, I think he's got something good going on there. So give me Coach Prime.
Coach Kelly.
I don't want to pick him because I coached with him in the Under Armour All-Star game. I'm not a fan of Dion's. And I was on his TV show, him and Michael Irvin, a long time ago in Dallas. And when I was coaching down there, not a fan of his, but he's put together a pretty good team there. They're going to win this game easy.
Yeah, I'm going with Jackson State for another reason. Shout out Mike Markison. He's offensive line coach at Jackson State. It's an Arkansas connection. I didn't even know that until I saw him on the sideline a couple of weeks ago. I was like, holy crap, there's Mike Markson. Didn't know the dude was Stephen coaching football.
Was he the one that was at Wisconsin that Bielema fired after 2 games? I want to say that's what happened or something.
He was at Arkansas with Houston Nutt.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. But I also thought
recruited me to Arkansas, and then when they all busted up, he went to Ole Miss, and when that whole deal went out, then he went to Wisconsin for maybe a year, and then maybe that second year it was like he was out under Bielema.
Yeah, I didn't even know the guy was still coaching football until I saw him on TV the other day because he's cracking on 70 years old. I mean, he's been coaching a long time. Well, the game that we're here to talk about, the Ole Miss Rebels, Lane Kiffin coming to Fayetteville Saturday night, 6:30. First conference night game we've had in 2 years, something like that. It's been a minute. Ole Miss, depending on which service you look at, 2.5 point favorite at home or in Fayetteville. Over and under started out at 60.5. I think it's gone up to 62. There's some discussion whether KJ's going to play, if he's not going to play. I honestly, I'm going to be honest, it's my show. I got 2 picks. Depends on if he plays or not. But Greg, what do you think is going to happen Saturday night? Give me a pick and give me a final score.
I'm gonna go Arkansas. I went against Arkansas last week, and for the first time ever, and it didn't feel good. I hated that feeling, even though I won. I'm gonna go Arkansas 45, Ole Miss 38.
Interesting. Grant.
So if you get 2 picks, I get 2 picks too.
ahead.
I'll pick Arkansas to win if we win, and Arkansas to lose if we lose. No, I'm kidding. Ali, Vegas doesn't get it wrong very many times, right? And I've been battling this since I knew that I was going to come back on the podcast. I have been thinking about this game in particular all week, and I was like, who do you pick? Especially when this comes out and the lines, 2.5. I think if we get a healthy KJ, that's a big if, right? I do think Arkansas wins. I think our defense has kind of figured something out, a little bit of flame under their ass, and is playing some ball. They can carry it over to the next week, and we can contribute offensively if KJ's in the game. If KJ doesn't play, I think we probably, I don't want to say get boat raced, but it's not going to be very pretty. So I'm going to go. I think Arkansas probably wins this one. I'm going to assume KJ is going to play because that's just a big question mark, I think, and it's enough to switch it one way or the other. So assuming KJ plays, I think we win the game. Score prediction be 34-31, same as it was last week. But I do think we're going to score some points. That's about average when KJ plays. I think our defense does enough. It's going to be really tough to stop Ole Miss, but I think they do enough to get it done.
John?
Well, yeah, here's the thing is like with this game, I've been going back and forth on it too. And sometimes I try to take off my Razorback tinted glasses on some of this stuff too. But here's kind of where my head's at. And I'm going to go ahead and assume that KJ Jefferson is going to play. I mean, we don't know how healthy he is, but I'm just going to assume he's going to play. One thing that stood out to me, I actually talked about this on my podcast, is I'll never forget it, that there was a video that came out at SEC Media Days this past year where somebody, I don't remember who, was interviewing KJ and asked him about the games that he has circled or the games that he most wants to win or the teams he most wants to beat, whatever it was. And the number one school that he mentioned was Ole Miss. And because of his connections, of course, being from Mississippi, but also remembering last year's game where they came up just 1 point short. He had 6 total touchdowns in that game, and Arkansas came up short, as we all know. So that being said, I just kind of am basing it off of if KJ is healthy, he is going to be extremely motivated to win this game. He didn't get to play against Mississippi State either, because that was another one he wanted to win. He wanted to beat the Mississippi schools. He didn't get to play in that one. If he plays, I think he's going to play with a huge chip on his shoulder. He's going to play extremely passionate and motivated. And because of that, the entire offense around him is going to be that way. And I think the defense is really starting to click. So assuming KJ Jefferson's healthy, I got Arkansas winning this game. And I think it's actually going to be a lower scoring game too, similar to what LSU and Arkansas was, because it was really cold. I think maybe the cold weather plays a factor, but I think Arkansas can win this game by a final score of 24-20. Close game, but Arkansas gets the win.
Coach?
Man, this was a tough one. I think that overhanging cloud of the Bama thing, I think the Vegas close line, I just feel like Arkansas is going to win it, but logically, I can't sit there and say all of a sudden we figured out how to pass if they decide to stop the run. I can't say that, if KJ is going to be completely healthy and that's going to make all the difference. So I want to say it's going to be a high scoring game, but I think it'll be slow at first and then high scoring in the second half. So that said, I'm going to say 31-27 Ole Miss. And Arkansas could easily win this. I think it's a coin flip to me.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I wrote it down twice because I couldn't decide which way I wanted to go. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of like John. I think, I was at Media Days. I heard KJ, talking about, he really, that Ole Miss loss last year, like stuck in his craw something fierce. It bothered him because he's got a lot of family in Sardis, Mississippi. He's got a lot of family in the Oxford area. I want to say at the game last year in Oxford, he had like 40 or 50 family members showed up to that ball game. I've seen John on his podcast wearing one of KJ's shirts that his mom had made up. big time thing for him to beat Ole Miss. Me being an Eastern Arkansas kid, like I was raised to hate, and we talked about the first part of the broadcast tonight. I was raised to hate two teams, Texas and Ole Miss. I can't stand Ole Miss. It's a poverty school as far as I'm concerned. Them winning a baseball national championship this year like killed me. Like I went to bed for a week and didn't come out of the dark. It took me a while to get over it. I think if KJ Jefferson's healthy, I think it's going to give us enough to get over on them and win the game. I think the key to this game is going to be, like we talked about, Grant, is going to be at the line of scrimmage with the offensive and the defensive lines on both sides of the football. I think Arkansas is just a little bit better offensively. If Dalton Wagner is able to go, they still haven't said what his injury. I haven't heard anything about what his injury situation is. Just know they held him out, which I've got to suspect is probably his back, because the kid's had some back issues the last couple of years, some muscle strains and things like that. But I got the Hogs winning. I got the Hogs winning 35-34, and it's late. I mean, we're down 3 late. I think Cam Little's going to pull it out for us at home, similar to what happened last year with Ole Miss. But I really think it's going to be tight. And I also could see if KJ doesn't play, it may go 28-10 Ole Miss. I mean, we may not score 10 points. A lot of it's going to depend on whether or not number one can go at quarterback. If number one can go, I think we've got a really, really good shot. Because it's going to change the way that Ole Miss's defense has to approach our offense, because they're going to have to respect the pass a little bit more than they would if we had one of the other guys at the quarterback position. So anyways, that's the show for the week. Man, I appreciate everybody being here. We missed you, Danny. We missed you, B. Grant, thank you again. Mr. Neighbors, thank you for gracing us with your presence. I mean, I was going to call you the George Hamilton of Arkansas media with that felt tan you got going on, but it's all good. We love you on this show, and we love you being a part of it tonight. Coach, thank you again as always. Your insight is great, and Greg, appreciate you bringing the fire tonight. We'll be back next Tuesday night at 8:00. We'll be in the post-game review for Ole Miss and the pregame review for the Missouri game. We will have a Twitter space Thursday night doing a little pregame stuff. We'll be talking about the basketball game from Wednesday night. Looking forward to some Razorback basketball this week. You know, we talked about it earlier, 2 big 5-star pickups by Coach Muss, getting Blocker and getting Fall. I wish we could have got Diop out of Colorado to come with him, but, you know, it is what it is at this point. But we talked about it earlier, pulling 5 stars in 2 years. I don't care which program you're at. That's a huge thing to do. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for supporting Arkansas Sports Network and Big Pig Energy.